Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's Turbo Talk, hosted by the East Central Iowa Council of Governments. My name is Lindsay Givenegli, and I am an environmental specialist here at ECICOG. I spend most of my time working with cities, businesses, and organizations with the Iowa Waste Exchange Program. If you're joining us for the first day today, for our first Turbo Talk, this is a webinar series designed to share timely and practical information in a short, focused format that respects all of our busy schedules. Today, we're learning about the Iowa Derelict Building Program, a valuable funding opportunity helping communities across Iowa address vacant public and commercial buildings. We're pleased to welcome our presenter, Reed Bermel. He's an environmental specialist senior with the Iowa Department of Natural Resources. Reed has extensive knowledge and experience with the Derelict Building Program and is here to walk us briefly through eligibility, the application process, and how your community can take advantage of this funding. Reed, thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lindsay, for that warm introduction and welcome everybody. Um, I am actually going to have two polls pop up quick. I feel that I try to be very flexible in how I present. So Zach, if you wouldn't mind, our first poll question that you're going to see pop up is it's asking who's heard me talk before and if you have any knowledge of the derelict building program. So if you'd all just take a few seconds, yes, no, if you've heard me talk before or if you have knowledge. We were joking ahead of time. If you heard me talk but don't have knowledge, then I haven't done my job correctly. So again, I'm getting some great response. So we see four have heard me, eight have not. I think that's 12. And how many participants? We got one left. So we'll end that poll. So yeah, so the majority have not heard me talk before. So that is great. And for those of you that have heard me talk before, welcome back. Great to have you back and everything, because there is some new information that you're definitely going to learn today. Zach, would you also please run my second poll? The second poll question is going to be how many of you are representing your own town with someone else on the call? So what I'm getting at there is, are you the only person on the call today representing your community, or are there two or more of you on this call that are representing the same project and or community? So if you wouldn't mind running that poll for me quick, and then that just kind of gives me a better understanding of how who we have on the call. Maybe I need to hear stop sharing. Oh, I see. Okay, we ran them both. I apologize. Great. Okay, very good. All right. So it looks like we had some that are on there. I am going to start sharing my screen. Maybe. Lindsay, what do you see, Lindsay? Do you see my cover page set
I
up?
see it's not in presentation mode, but I see the slides to the left and then
Okay. I think we might have had this snafu before. Now is it in presentation mode or not?
it is, but I see the next slide as well.
Okay. So
Maybe present in Teams up in the upper right if you exit out of this.
thank you all for bearing with me. As you can tell, this is not my strong suit. Where would I go? You said, where do
Um,
I present in Teams?
I think up in the upper right isn't
Is it more
Zach, do you know?
Go to slideshow, I think.
on within
Yeah,
the PowerPoint or within?
like there should be like a row at the top, like
Yep.
home insert,
Okay.
yeah. And then
And that,
for monitor, you can probably uncheck presenter view unless you normally use that.
okay.
And then try from beginning on the left side of your screen.
Perfect. And that I do run dual monitors, so is it popping it up? Are you seeing now just the cover screen? cover
Um,
slide.
we're still seeing the slideshow from pres or PowerPoint.
Okay, so let
Go
me
back to,
reshare my others. Give me 1 second. How's that look? Is that better?
There we
yep,
go.
Okay, so you're all seeing just the one slide. Perfect.
Yep, we got her.
All right. Man, 6 minutes. All right, here we go. So, all right. Again, the Derelict Building Program, this is a program that works with those rural communities that I think most of you are part of, population of 5,000 or fewer residents to address issues that are posed by those neglected commercial public buildings. So, one of the main things that we get here is we get a lot of questions on, hey, I'm not incorporated. I'm more of a county buildings. Those do not apply. So you do actually have to have a governing body. Hey, my city is 7,500 people. Currently at this point in time, unfortunately, I do understand you kind of fall through the cracks. You're not quite big enough that you might have that big tax base or whatever. But again, the way that this program is currently written, we are only helping out those communities of 5,000 or less. So we do actually have to have a line in the sand somewhere, and that's where it's at. From the concept to today, the program started in 2011. It was a very successful pilot project with the help of the city of Seymour, Iowa. So, the way I understand, I am the second program manager. Scott Flagg was the first program manager of the Derelict Building Program, and the city of Seymour had this building down there. It didn't just quite qualify. It didn't qualify for brownfield. It didn't qualify for other federal funding. There wasn't really a state program. Yes, like most of you, they had some dollars, but most of those are already budgeted in for other issues to help. And taking on these buildings it can get pretty expensive pretty quick. So what the DNR did was they look at it from the environmental aspect of it. So the whole basis is, again, we are trying to initially address that environmental concern with the building that it proposes. Yes, we understand that there's some health and safety issues, but again, uh, the environmental aspect of it. And the big thing is the more of it essentially that we keep out of the landfill and can reduce, reuse, recycle, the better we come ahead. And this is set up as an incentive program. So especially on those deconstruction projects, the more by weight that you keep out of landfill, the more money you get within the parameters. So as of today, with this last funding round, we have over 350,000. So we're nearing 400 applicants that have submitted. We've funded just about 200 of those projects that have received funding, and then we've impacted nearly 150 different Iowa communities. So there are, and I have some examples later in the slides, there are communities that have been successful in running multiple projects during a year, but you can also come back multiple years for the same project or have one project 1 year and then you have another building or project that's at a different address and you can address that one down for the next year. So how this grant program is structured, um, I get $400,000 available for each fiscal year. Again, the priority of the program is to increase landfill diversion, as I mentioned before, and removing any existing structure through that deconstruction process. Notice I'm not saying demolition. So demolition, by definition, is they come in, they knock the building down, haul away, and put it in landfill. Again, deconstruction is more of a surgeon type of approach where we want to make sure we're rescuing out those materials. You're going to be working with your different avenues that Lindsay in your area can help you find to get those materials recycled. Available funding options. So again, as I mentioned before, it's a reimbursable program. As you've all heard, we want to make sure that you have some skin in the game, right? So it's reimbursable. There are actually 7 different areas to remove these environmental hazards. And at the end of the day, money talks, and we want to minimize the budget issues and help improve your community's appearance. So I think of the 7 different areas as kind of buckets of money. Yes, there's the derelict building uh, grant itself, but within that, you can actually ask for money of 7 different areas. Those areas are we can pay for certified ACM inspections. So ACM stands for asbestos containing material inspections. We can pay for the ACM removal. So you'd have your inspection first and determine how much asbestos you have in that building. And then we can also pay for that removal. Structural engineering analysis. So if you're not quite sure if
Read.
you want to, yes.
Your slides are not advancing.
Okay. So I'm not sure. How about we do this? So in the interest of time, I do apologize, but you're going to get to see kind of what lies ahead. So now do you see the screen with the next slides on the side?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so let's just go with this then.
All right.
So thank you.
Apologies.
Thank you for, yep, apologies on that. Would you like me to go back and just again, I can highlight these other ones. It's basically just a recap of what I talked about. So there really wasn't a lot of different information. But I do understand some of you are visual learners. Lindsay will also email out this presentation, so I will make it accessible to her to send it to you. But this is kind of where we're at. So right here is where I left off before you let me know. But again, so these different buckets of information, if you would, or excuse me, of funding are down on bullet two. The structural and engineering analysis, again, is if you're trying to determine essentially if the building's worth saving, so should we do that renovation? Should we do a deconstruction? Most commonly, the basement wall anchorings, the integrity of the trusses on the roof. Those are a couple examples that engineering analysis can help you have. Depending on the funding you get to, because there is a match, sometimes they also want to know from your financial institute, if you're using something like that, what are the other hazards? So phase one, phase two environmental assessments, we will help pay for those. But here's the meat and potatoes that we most commonly get outside of the asbestos is the renovation and deconstruction. So with that renovation, again, we are paying for, think of the structure of the building, not so much the cosmetic or a lot of the more interior layers. Like we don't really pay for the flooring, like the carpets and the tiles and that, but we pay for subflooring and braces and some different things like that. It's hard because each project's so unique. But at the end of the day, if we look at the structure, the wall structure itself, the ceilings, and the roof structure, that type of thing. And then deconstruction, I feel I've already explained that well enough. Eligibility. So it must be city owned or be in the process of owning it. I am very forthright and very transparent on this stuff. So what happens is, yes, it can be privately owned at the time that you apply, end of February, but the city has to show how they are taking possession of that building. All these grants come active on July 1st. So it's typically you apply at end of February, and I'll go through that process on the next couple slides. But those grants come active July 1st. I am going to give you something to think about though. How would put yourself on my side of the table and with the review committee, who would you score higher? Somebody that already, if the city already owns it, or if you're going through the process. And these are some of the things that we see with our applicants sometimes. So the more work you can get done on the front end when you apply and work with Lindsay on that and different things, it's just going to help you score so much higher on because this is a competitive grant and everything. But again, we understand how things go. You get busy, or maybe it's a nuisance building. Those are welcome, but you're going through your local uh, protocol on that to obtain those buildings and that. So, keep in mind on that. The building must be abandoned for at least 6 months. I always give the example, it was around COVID time. And so we had our separation distances. There was one particular city, they were trying to achieve a renovation grant. However, it was occupied. They actually had kids over in it. So then that raised the question, is it truly derelict? Which, again, that's more for you to work with your Iowa Waste Exchange rep. Yes, I can lean in on it. That structuring engineering analysis will help you determine how far gone it is. But at the end of the day, if people are in there occupying, that's a good litmus test that no, it's probably not that derelict. Able to reclaim materials and reuse. Again, this is where you're going to work with Lindsay. Again, the Iowa Waste Exchange, for those of you that don't know, is a free confidential service. They actually are subcontracted with the DNR. So we essentially help fund them, and then they help us out with these initiatives. But this is what Lindsay and then the other reps in the other part of the state can do. They can come in, they help give you an idea of what materials, what markets there are for them, and how to keep those out of the landfill. Again, it's not 100% perfect. Yes, she does have a deconstruction or construction calculator where she can put in measurements and the materials and it spits it out. But at the end of the day, when you're doing these projects, everything is going to go across a scale and be weighed, and that's going to be documented. So it gives us an idea if the project is actually viable or not. But once again, it's not the final answer if, well, we can only get to 65% according to Lindsay's calculation, but you got 80% of diversion. And the reason that's important, again, is because there's dollar tied. So you want to hit certain thresholds to get the maximum money that you can. Building it does not reside on the historical register. So that's our SHPO office, the State Historical Preservation Office. Because again, a great group of people. Yes, they definitely have a mission of what they're trying to do there, but it really kind of bogs down what we're trying to do here too, and I get it. A lot of times this is going to come out wrong, but there's a lot of emotional ties to these buildings sometimes. So we want to make sure that the cities we work with, that you have a clear plan on it. It's not part of the historical register. And then that way we can move forward with renovating and or deconstructing these. Absolutely, you can local partner with local nonprofits. I'm going to give an example of that later. So we'll keep that on the back burner for now. Application requirements. As I already mentioned before, the city, you have to have that ownership by the start of the grant date, not application date. So that application date is always due the last Friday in February. The grant will actually become live July 1st if you are approved. The history of the building. So we want a narrative of what happened at 101 Main Street. Again, we're not looking for the encyclopedia version, but we're also not looking for a very footnote. When you answer these, again, keep in mind you're competing. So you want probably on most answers about 3 to 5 paragraphs, good information. If you feel that you start repeating yourself on things, then you probably have already said enough. Good people that are very successful have a plan for the deconstruction or renovation. What I mean by that is that they're going to say, hey, Reed, we need funding this year to do our asbestos inspection and abatement. We're going to come back next year then and do our deconstruction or our renovation. It also goes further along to say, hey, it used to be an old warehouse and now this is what we had planned for it, that it's going to be a dining facility or a cafe in our community. So again, the more detail that you can get, the better the plan. The sooner you start, the more successful you're going to be. Identifying those reuse markets for the building materials. I feel I've already explained that enough. Again, just putting in another plug for Lindsay and the Iowa Waste Exchange. So if you're not quite sure where can my brick go, I got this metal waste, that's where it goes to. But you actually need letters from those people accepting the waste, even the waste going into the landfills. They have to have a letter saying yes, they can accept that stuff, because at the end of the day, you'll still have some material that just isn't recyclable. Support letters. The more support letters you can get, the better. A good rule of thumb, if you will, at a minimum, it should be your mayor, the Iowa Waste Exchange, Lindsay would write you one, and then people of the community. If you already have a business that's coming in, we had a particular community, they were bringing in a dentist, so that dentist wrote, yes, if we can get this going, that would just help me support the community with their dental needs and everything. So stuff like that. Daycares, I know those are huge in these small towns and hard to find. So if you can get one from the daycare, from young families, Lindsay can also help write those for you. There's nothing saying that you can't pre-write those, sit down, do an interview with them, or even have more of a standard template and then have the individual sign it. We see all of them. Three bids are required per funding option. So again, you saw that there were up to seven different pools of money that you can get. Each one of those that you try to get awarded, you do have to have three bids of coming in from different contractors of that. Again, I'm gonna kind of flip roles with you guys on this. So again, you're on my side of the table. So you got City A that goes out, they get their three bids, they submit. City B, on the other hand, asked for three bids, but they only got two. Okay. And then they submit two. And then City 3 did the same. They asked for three bids, they got two. But when they submitted their application, they said on there, hey, here's the email from that particular third contractor indicating that their schedule's too full. Okay. So how would you rank them? Well, I can tell you, we rank them. Three bids is always the solid. Then the one that had two bids but could explain why they don't have third, they get ranked over top of somebody with two bids, even though the city B went out and asked for three bids, but they only submitted two. From the reviewer standpoint, it looks like you came up short. So keep that in mind. Insurance coverages, these are your standard insurances that you have through your city and making sure that you're covered on your project. So fairly straightforward. Color photos, if possible, of inside, outside, and inside. The inside is if possible. So sometimes we understand the building might be too far gone and not safe to go into. But again, keep it reasonable. Don't be the proud grandparent and send me 60 pictures of a building, right? So we want to see about 3 to 5 of each stage, kind of before, during, and after. These are important because you will need these for your final report. You cannot take pictures during the abatement because that of asbestos, because that is hazardous material. But again, what we're looking for there is when the project's done in your final report, somewhere around 12 to 15 pictures that have good representation of the building before while it was being taken down, maybe some of the piles of the materials separated, and then the after of the leveled off field, or what you'll see here coming up, cash match only. So again, you do have to have some funding because we do not pay for 100% of everything. Yes, we do pay for like inspections up to a certain point. On the asbestos, we go first 10,000, then half on others. Um, and there's just a lot of nuances there. Lindsay can walk you through that. You can talk to me. Each project's a little different. All right, City of Rockford. I'm going to go through these super quick. The reason this one, I wanted to bring it up. If you can see, this was a two-phase approach. So this is kind of a standard project. The city mayor there, they came in, we did an abatement the first year and then a deconstruction the second year. If you can see on this before, there's on the very left corner, you see white brick kind of with a maroon burgundy side panel. That's the local insurance agency. And then the pictures are flipped. So if you look at the after with those vertical um, fencing, if you will, on the right-hand side, that's that building that was there. It was very interesting. They had a situation where they had to stabilize the wall form. So you got to make sure you're talking with the neighbors, make sure that they're aware ahead of time, like, hey, we're taking this building down. Our contractor is going to do everything possible. But some of these buildings that kind of share walls or are tight like this, like most downtowns, you want to make sure you have those issues resolved ahead of time. City of Coon Rapids. This was a great one. As you see in the before, what you have here is this kind of the back corner that where the ceiling drops. This was a deconstruction and a renovation all in once. And the thing about City of Coon Rapids, they actually partnered with the local nonprofit. So we have to channel everything through the city, but at the end of the day, it was the local economic group of Coon Rapids that was literally walking this project through. So very, very successful project. So, but everything flowed through the city. And that's how it worked. But what they did here was they took off this back part as part of the deconstruction, and then you can tell they did a renovation on the front. So this is now a coffee shop cafe, and I think before it used to be a hardware store. The last one that I want to point out in my example is a city of New Market. They had, as you see before, they have two buildings here. They proposed two applications. What you'll notice is a lot of times the cities tend to think of these as one project. And I get it, right? Because your contractor is going to come out. You're only getting charged that fee for the relocation the one time. You're doing, the takedown and everything as one project. But at the end of the day, these are two buildings. I mean, this is a great example. These buildings were not built the same time. These buildings have different addresses, different uses, different materials. So if you're a city that would like to do two buildings at the same time, that's great. But just know we are running these as two separate projects, and you have to make sure your contractor treats it as such. So everything with building A has to be weighed and documented separately from building B. They have to be invoiced separately, that sort of thing, just to keep everything clean and simple. This year, City of Thornton, kind of in north central part, they're actually doing three buildings in one. So that'll be a first for us. Here's the exciting news that I have for you. So I have an additional funding this time around of $1 million starting fiscal year 27. So that just started about a month and a half ago. So July 1st, we're trying to get the governor said, "Hey, we really like this derelict building project program, so we want to give you $1 million." So I have been working on top of everything else that I do to try and figure out how do I spend an extra $1 million. So this isn't $1 million total. This is actually 1.4 because if you remember earlier, my in the presentation I get 400,000. So what I have done so far was we had the cities that applied back in February. One of them came up a little short, and then others just didn't score as high and needed some supplemental information. So I funded those projects initially then. So we went back, we gave the other one full funding, got the supplemental information from the other city and was able to fund theirs. What we're going to be doing, and I literally am going to be sending this out and finalizing the plans for this, is we're doing a special asbestos round. So the idea here is we are for sure going to be paying for the abatement, potentially the inspections. I'm looking at most likely an end of September, mid-October deadline for these, so cities can apply. It's going to be just like our grant application normally is, but I pulled out all the other options. So if you're familiar with the application, it's literally going to still ask for the history and the address and so on and so forth of the building. But again, you're only going to be able to apply for the asbestos portion of that. And then the idea there is that the buildings are technically shovel ready come February. So then you can still reapply in February for your deconstruction and renovation. And then with that being said, whatever money's left over on February's round, I'm adding that to the 400,000. So if I'm able to spend $500,000 here on this asbestos round, come February, I'm going to have $900,000 to spend. So with my last minute, here's my contact information. Again, Lindsay will send this all out. So I do appreciate everybody's time and thank you again for allowing me to talk. Hopefully you all deemed some opportunities out of this, thinking of buildings that you have in your community, and we'd love to see you apply.
All right, thank you, Rita. I think there was one question real quick. For projects where multiple buildings and DNR looks as separate projects, does that mean can get multiple grants or higher amounts?
Yes, absolutely. So keep in mind each project's by itself. So each project is eligible up to those maximum amounts for itself. So for example, if all three were going to be renovations, we would get, and you qualified, we would give you $50,000 per building to renovate each building. Because again, that's exactly right. But there's always those nuances, right? So in the past, I have a lot more flexibility with this money I have, but keep in mind in the past we had 400,000. So even though you may qualify for it all, some of it is a little bit of a balancing act on that. But yes, you can get the maximum amount per grant per building if you're doing multiple projects in your town.
And the question on all on one application, no, you need separate applications for each. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
Separate applications. Again, Don, just keep in mind we are running these as all separate projects. So it's going to be if you're doing two buildings, it's double the paperwork. But again, we're doubling your money.
Okay. Well, we are out of our half an hour time. So, Reed, thank you so much. And everyone, thank you for joining us today. Don't hesitate to reach out with questions. Again, I'll send out the the associated PowerPoint, and you can reach out with any questions you have.
Sounds great. Thanks so much.
All right. Thanks, everyone.